Mine's a little longer.
I was going to give credit to you anyway. I'd say this came from...
Actually, Doug was the one that coined the phrase.
Doug coined the phrase, but I spent some time blending in a few more things.
Go.
Okay, folks, it's 2 minutes after 7. I'm calling the May 13th Planning Board meeting to order. And I had announced just a few minutes ago that, well, we've got one more agenda up here if somebody wants it. If you want it, please come and grab it now. First on the agenda is the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of April 15th and April 29th, 2014 as amended.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. The first action beyond that on the agenda are approval not required plans, and we do not have any tonight. So we move on to public hearing. The first applicant is Nathan Ellis Highway LLC for a special permit modification to update the equipment list, expand hours of operation, and allow outside parking of vehicles accessory to the primary use of the contractor's yard located at 210 Nathan Ellis Highway, East Falmouth. And
We had 12 abutters notices were sent by certified mail on April 25th, 2014. 10 signed receipts were returned. Publishing dates in the Falmouth Enterprise were April 25th, May 2nd, and May 9th of 2014.
Okay. And for the applicant, please.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Oppenheim. I'm an attorney here in Falmouth. I'm here this evening with my client, Carl Cavosa, my partner, Jeff Nickerson, and we are presenting an amendment to Mr. Cavosa's special permit, which is issued by this board. The property is out on Route 151. It's owned by Nathan Ellis Highway LLC. I think the board is pretty familiar with it. We've had a history of special permits and amendments issued by this board. Some of the members of the board probably go back as far as the beginning of that process. The contractor's yard was something that was inspired by town meeting and brought to the planning board, and the planning board developed a bylaw to allow contractors to operate in agricultural zones due to the lack of industrially zoned property in the town of Falmouth. And actually, our client worked with this board, and a bylaw was passed in April of 1997. His permit was issued, his initial permit was issued in February of 1998 under Section 24038K, which is the contractor's yard provision. It's been amended 3 times, once in December of '99 to construct a garage and to increase the size of the amount of loom stored at the property from 7,500 to 10,000 cubic yards, and to increase the number of vehicles from the initial amount that was allowed of 14. It was amended again in April of 2000 to allow half of the garage structure to be utilized by Cape Cod Fabrication, Inc., which was a tenant of the property owner through approximately 2008. They vacated and moved to the tech park. In 2002, in October, which was the last time the special permit was amended, the board allowed the storage of empty dumpsters and delivery trucks, and the storage of 2,000 cubic yards of recycled stump mulch, and the recycling of byproducts of asphalt, stone, and concrete, more commonly known as ABC. The board also allowed the construction of an office building with a security apartment in the basement. That was in 2002. So we're back before you this evening to make some minor adjustments to our special permit. And we've attached to our petition an Exhibit A, which is a updated list of equipment. And I'd like to take you through the changes from 2002 to what we're requesting today. And we have some...
Jeff, may I interrupt you momentarily? We do have a large number of people here tonight, and I did forget to mention, if you have cell phones with you, please turn them off. Thank you, Jeff.
So, Mr. Hayes here on the board.
Yeah.
Red line version. Make sure that it's easy to follow along. There's 2 there. I think you... So the first requested change is on the normal business hours. The prior petition, and which was approved, was from operational hours from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and we're asking for unlimited hours. And the reason we're asking for unlimited hours is for 2 reasons. One is that when the equipment is marshaled and brought to locations outside of Falmouth, and sometimes outside of or off Cape, the men and the equipment have to leave very early in the morning, earlier than the current 6 a.m. Hours provided by our permit. In addition, and perhaps more importantly, if a piece of equipment breaks down, it has to be repaired, and sometimes it has to be repaired there at the garage overnight, so that it can be operational and used by one of our tenants, which is an excavation business. So we don't want to be in violation of our permit to have a mechanic or mechanics working on a piece of equipment during the evening and possibly into the early morning hours. The next change you can see is in paragraph 2B1. We're decreasing the number of 10-wheel tractors from 4 to 1, so a net loss of 3. But 2 lines lower, where we're increasing or requesting an increase from 1 10-wheeled roll-off truck to deliver and pick up dumpsters to 4. So that's a net increase of 3. Line B4, we eliminated our septic pump truck, which we no longer have, but we've added one 6-wheel dump truck. So that's sort of a zero net gain there. Under paragraph C1, we've deleted, we're decreasing the number of Bobcat trailers from 2 down to 1. And under C3, we're changing the one 9-ton trailer to one 20-ton trailer. And we're adding one gravel dump trailer. In addition, so we're decreasing from 2 gravel dump trailers to 1 gravel dump trailer. So that's a negative loss of one piece of equipment. Under paragraph D, we're adding one front end loader where we previously were permitted for 2. So that's a gain of 1. And under D4, we're going from 1 Bobcat to 3 Bobcats. So that's a gain of 2. So by my calculations, there's really a 0 net gain. We're eliminating some, we're adding others, but in the end, it's a 0 net gain in equipment. We're also, to bring the board's attention under paragraph 2A, 4, we have empty dumpsters, and we have not designated a number. That's the way we presented our petition in 2002. That's the way we are presenting it tonight to you. The 2002 decision of the board limited us to 13 dumpsters on the site. I'd like to quickly just walk you through the site plan, bring that up to date, and then I'll probably be able to take any questions you have. So to orient you, this is Nathan Ellis Highway. On this side is Dr. DeLinks's property, which is where his veterinarian hospital is, and where you can board pets. This structure here is the garage, which I talked about, and there is employee parking adjacent to it. There's an area here where empty dumpsters are stored. The fueling area is right here. There's a storage area for tools, piping, other equipment used in their operation. This area here is a cell tower, which has been permitted by our Zoning Board of Appeals with a special permit. There's also 2 storage trailers which store additional equipment. It's a temporary parking area shown as this block. There's a hoop building which is not fully constructed, but if you go out there, you can see it's partially up. Across from that area is the office building, and in the basement of the office building is a permitted apartment for security purposes. Around the office building are parking spaces for the staff and any visitors to the site. There's an empty storage or dumpster storage area here, and this area to the, that would be to the east, is where the loom is stockpiled. There is a sorting machine located right here, and I guess this is the stockpile, and this is the end product where the loom is. There's also some storage bins here for stone, and there's a wood chips a storage area here as well. Boulders are stockpiled here for use on job sites. There's a wildlife corridor, which is here. The United States government owns this property here, which is a railroad right-of-way into the base. Commonwealth of Massachusetts owns all the land to the rear, and there's a major utility easement that runs through the easternmost end of the property. This whole area along here is buffer, no parking, no access. There's a, most of you are familiar probably with the site from driving by, there's a large planted berm that runs pretty much the full length of the front of the property. That probably covers most of it. There's also a temporary structure in the back here. The temporary structures are used primarily during the winter to store vehicles that are used for snow removal, so that they're covered and protected from the elements. So that really is the sum of the changes we're requesting. I'd be happy to take any questions from any of the board members.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to make sure that we understand this is the first time we're hearing it, and questions are appropriate tonight so that we're fact-finding tonight rather than arguing anything or discussing anything amongst the board. And this would also be true from the public. We are hearing questions or concerns from the public about this potential proposal. We have a very, very full agenda tonight, so I'm going to have to strictly adhere to those instructions. So I will go to the board, and if you have any questions. Paul?
How much of these facilities are existing now?
All of these facilities exist.
They all exist?
They all exist.
Other questions from the board? Yes, Doug?
Are there any operations that are outside of the normal contractor yard that are existing now?
Yes.
What would those be?
Those would be the use of wheeled vehicles for rubbish removal.
Okay.
And we are seeking a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals after meeting with your staff on this issue.
Okay.
As an accessory use.
Okay.
Rich?
I would just want to see later, but I'm not going to be here, but later, I think just some analysis of the noise ratings of the vehicles that are leaving and the ones that will be replaced, just to see if there's an equivalence or increase or decrease.
Well, I would, I guess, ask why you would want that sort of a
I know
requirement.
it's fairly remote, but you are next to an area where animals are kept who are maybe susceptible to noise levels. You know, it's just something that would be interesting to know.
Well, okay, I mean, we certainly reserve the right to object to that requirement. We enjoy, and the board should know, we enjoy a very good relationship with our neighbor to the west. It would seem like there's no net gain in vehicles. I think it would be a rather burdensome requirement, but I would certainly talk to my client about it.
That's something that there should be ratings that you could just tell us about.
Noise rating for a vehicle, who rates the vehicle noise?
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like a sound engineer, it sounds very expensive, you've already permitted the use. I think it's excessive.
Jim, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Ralph, do you have anything? No. Bob? No. Okay, I do, because I was one of the board members here for the original plan. And memory doesn't always serve that long gap in time. But what my memory is telling me is that there are certain things on here that weren't on the plan that we approved it. And the temporary lean-to storage for one, I think. Some of the storage trailers, I think, the hoop building, I think, was never approved.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay, so we got some things going on here that were not approved previously.
Right.
And I don't think there's a request on here to put those in as a
Well,
change.
this is the plan that we're submitting. Madam
I
Chair.
understand, but that's why I'm asking. I'd like to know everything that is being added to this definitively, rather than just exchanges of vehicles. I'd like to know everything that is being requested to be added, because most of the board members were not here. Rich
Fine,
was,
that's fine.
and I think the rest were not. And Rich will not be here.
We would expect that the planning board would consider the plan that we've submitted with our petition as part of our petition, as you normally would. And we are requesting, if I haven't been specific enough, that you approve what we're showing on our plan. We have the right to have temporary buildings, and we just are trying to disclose everything that is in existence.
Okay, but that wasn't exactly how it was presented, and I'm trying to make it a little bit more clear for the board members here that certain things are existing that were not put into the permit, and that's my sole reason for doing this, and it may or may not be important that the board members understand.
Well, if I was, I did not mean to mislead Paul when he asked, are these in existence? They are in existence. You know, were they on the prior plan in 2002? No, the hoop buildings were not.
It depends upon the question you ask and how you ask it as to how it's going to be answered. And I do understand that. I do understand the necessity to run a business. But I also understand that when we give approvals, that it's supposed to come back here for changes to be made. Now, the board has no further comments. Is this correct at this point in time, or questions? Because we are seeking questions on this. And it is a fairly complex thing that we're looking at tonight. Okay, now I will go to members of the public, and I want anybody who has any comments to please come up to the podium and state your name for the record. And please remember to limit it to questions about what has been presented and expression of a concern that you have, and be quite concise about what you are saying. And please try to avoid repetition so that we can get through this massive agenda tonight. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this plan? Yes. We'll give you time, don't hurry.
I'm sorry, is this on any of the three subjects?
What, no, this is on this plan right here, on the Cavosa plan.
Oh, it's on, no, I want to speak about the hours.
For Cavosa's plan? Yeah.
My name is John Elliott, Precinct 2, and I am definitely opposed to the unlimited hours. Here in town, we have a bylaw that only permits pickup of rubbish between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. It's done as early as 5:30. In the summer, it's almost every day of the week. Last week, it was 6 o'clock here in town. And I don't think that giving unlimited hours, it might end up at 3 in the morning. The trucks will be coming in to pick up. And I have filed 2 complaints with the police department. Nothing has happened with it. So I would like to keep the restriction on the number of hours. Excuse me, I'll be 10 minutes to go back by seat.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask questions on this? Please.
Good evening. My name's Jody Shaw. I'm here on behalf of CLSV Associates. We're the property owner to the south of Mr. Cavosa, the 31-acre parcel that's currently undeveloped, but it does have zoning in place for a senior care retirement district. And I just want to speak in support of Mr. Cavosa's efforts. He's been a great neighbor, and I work in this area, and I'm in and out and past this site, many times on a daily basis. And he's kept the property in great condition. You really can't see much of it. The berming is well done. I've not experienced any noise issues or heard complaints, while I'm doing my duties for Ballymead and this property. And as far as what may happen with the 31 acres in the future, we're happy he's a neighbor and it works very well for that area. 151 is a busy road. You really can't tell the noise that he might create versus others. And from a traffic, point of view, I don't think there's any real impact that I've ever seen. It's a section of road that's freely traveled, never congested, and I think his drivers and staff, the times that I've seen them, which is not even often going in and out of the property, do a fine job. So I just want to comment in support of what he's asking for. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Maury Harlow Hawks, 9 Old Dock Road. I'm not in support of this, and the reason is 151, and I guess I'm going to ask the questions first. The board had in 2002, there were several outstanding issues on this property, and I would like to know if they've been cleaned up yet, which was the encroachment on the Fish and Wildlife, the encroachment on N-Star, the signage on 151 to say that there were slow trucks, and these are all on record, in your record. And I really feel that before we add any more, that we might want to make sure that the house is cleaned up before we start adding more. Currently, when you go by there, I think the unlimited hours, I would be opposed to. I know that there aren't many neighbors, but on Cloverfield Way, you can hear the tailgate slam all the time. You can hear the backup alarms. The dumpsters, the dump trucks or whatever they are, go out sometimes 3, 4 in the morning. I live on Old Dock Road. I know they pick up rubbish at 4:30 at the Real Estate Associates. So they're outside of their purview now. By giving them unlimited hours, all you've done is basically condone what they're already doing, and I guess maybe they can ask for that special permit, which they are. It's a 50-mile-an-hour road, 151 is, and the big problem there, and I think that if Mr. Cavosa had a pull-off so that when he was going in, especially when they're headed east, and people are headed with the sun in their eyes, the trucks stop there, and if you do permit this, that you do make sure before anything is given to him that he adheres to the signage and he does something about, I mean, I think this gentleman from Ballymead said that there's no problem there, but you'll look where people have pulled over on the dirt. They've made a road around the trucks when they're stopped trying to get into the pit. And I would really wish that you would enforce that there's no retail sales there. And it's in his original permit, it's in his amended permit, and it's still there. Because again, small contractors like myself that go in, you pull out with a load, you're on a 50-mile-an-hour highway. The sun's in your eye in the morning, and your sun's in your eye in the evening, either way you go. And you're just adding a lot of traffic. He has his own traffic there. It's not a retail yard. It's a contractor yard, and it's stated in his permit not to have any retail sales. And he advertises retail sales. It's on his sign out front, screen loan for sale. So I just would hope that this board is prudent and goes through the file carefully, addresses the issues that are outstanding now, before you add another layer, because it gets very muddied after a while when, Ms. Kerfoot's one of the few and Mr. Latimer that have been on the board. And I just don't want that old history to go away. On this plan by Mr. Cawley Landers, Jack Landers Cawley, I have an aerial from Google Earth, and I'm not an engineer, but the rock pile is sitting right in NSTAR's easement. So, again, let's clean the house up before we add any more. And I'm not against him doing his work there, you know, he's landscaped it beautiful, it's a nice site. You gotta do business in town, but be consistent. And, you know, this started off in 1998. And if you look at what was allowed in 1998 and where we are now, it was a very little seed in this contractor yard. I don't know if this is exactly what was the intent of a contractor yard as a transfer station. So I just want to make sure that we don't add unlimited hours. I don't think it's fair to the community that lives out there, whether they're direct abutters or not, but you can hear those backup alarms. And in response to Mr. Oppenheim, when he said that he wants to be in compliance, well, I wish they would be in compliance with all their other issues. But one of them that he stated was that he wanted to be in compliance with being able to fix the trucks, and that way there he wants unlimited hours. In 1998, they were given that opportunity, and it's in their permit now, that they can, under repairs for emergency only and necessary to remove vehicles or equipment from the site. So they can work on their vehicles if there's an emergency already. We don't need to make unlimited hours, which means the trash trucks are going to be 24/7, 7 days a week, Sunday till Saturday, round the clock. And his business has grown, God bless him, but I don't think that we all should have to put up with that noise and the traffic on that road without having improvements to that site for people to get in and out. And when CLSV does have their older people community there, it's going to be, this will already be there, and it's going to be a big impact. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
My name's Carl Cavosa, I'm the owner of the property. The NSTAR easement is an easement across my property. They have an easement to go across my property. It doesn't mean I can't use that land. So yes, we do store materials underneath the wires. NSTAR's aware of it. As far as trucks coming and going from the site, we've been there since 1998. I've never had an accident on Route 151. I've never had a complaint from the police department, the fire department, or anyone else. As far as turning lanes, the town engineer built and designed our turning lanes. We have a turning lane into the property. I had to repave part of 151. Thanks to some folks in the room, I had to buy a piece of land from this town so I could landscape the berm out front and put my sign out front. So I went through that arduous, expensive task, thanks to some concerned citizens in the room, that I had landscaped a piece of town property. I've gone through all those things. Yeah, people are driving around trucks when they're parked on the side of the road, but they're doing the same thing at Cloverfield, they're doing the same thing on Brick Hill, they're doing the same thing in East Falmouth. I can't stop people from driving off of 151 to go around a parked truck. You cannot widen the road there. What happens is the bridge is 2 lanes. Route 151 could potentially be 4 lanes. But the town engineer explained to me, Carl, when you park a truck here, we don't want this car to zip past the truck, because now they have to come into a bridge that's only that wide, and it puts them into the other lane. So there is no room for a turning lane into my property from Route 28. They want the cars to slow down and come to a stop. Thank you.
Question?
Wait a minute, is there anyone else from the...
Just a question.
No, wait till we hear
The
from...
last thing, Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, initially there was some encroachment back here when we first laid out the site. 100% my fault. We went to Division Fisheries and Wildlife. We repaired reseeded the area. They came out and inspected it today, I'm sure, due to this meeting, and probably submitted a report to you or to a concerned neighbor.
Okay.
I guess I'm out of order with that.
No, that's okay. You can,
Quick
because I don't
question.
see any other hands popping up.
We've heard that you already have the right to do repairs on vehicles after hours, so that if a vehicle comes back in with some damage, you've got to get out the next morning. You could already do that. Is that correct?
I don't believe that's 100% correct, Mr. Latimer. If you read what the bylaw says what the permit says is, I have permission to remove the vehicle from the property. What does that means? I have to work to get the vehicle fixed, to remove it to the property, to bring it somewhere. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to, at some point, if we have to do repairs or put things together, bring people into the shop and employ them at night to actually do that work. That's what I'm looking to do.
Then we could do a very narrow, specifically limited,
Richard, I'm going to be very candid with you. You heard Mr. Shaw from Ballymead. They're going to build something on that 32-acre parcel across the street from me. You heard my good friend here tell you that those people were probably going to be older, and they would be filing complaints. I don't want to be ever in front of this board ever again. So I'm asking for as much as I can possibly get, because I've been there for 15 years, I've never had a complaint. I've never had a person from Ballymead come over and say to me, geez, I heard your tailgate slam or a backup alarm. We're not running trucks in the middle of the night slamming tailgates. It doesn't happen. I just don't want to be here. This special permit is like a hammer over my head. I employ a lot of people in the community, it's a hammer over their head. Because when somebody files a complaint, the reason we're here, someone filed a complaint. Now I'm here answering all these questions, spending thousands of dollars, engineered plans, 2 attorneys, so I can operate my business. That's not fair. So I'm asking for the moon. If I could ask for 200 trucks, I would. That way there, when Mr. Shaw sells the piece of property to somebody, and the person invests in a condominium there, and they come to this board and say, what's going on across the street? Well, he's got unlimited hours operation, and he's got a bunch of trucks over there. That property was zoned industrial. It's between a railroad, Route 151, and Route 28. It's a perfect spot for a contractor shop.
happens to be across from a residential, so, you know, all right.
Okay, we're getting into discussion now.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, please.
Mr. Cafosa just stated that that was industrial land. I think I'm confused. He just said it's industrial property. I think that's AGAA, if I'm not mistaken.
Never said it was industrial, I said it was industrial zone.
Okay, so it's not currently.
It changed, and that's not germane to what we're doing
Okay,
now.
I just want to make sure that it wasn't.
No, currently no.
I was away
It's
on
not.
vacation or something for that.
No.
Another quick question, the wildlife corridor, is it still established? Has anybody talked to Department of Natural Resources on that? And I did talk to Fish and Wildlife today, and there's been no remediation for the encroachment. And they actually had a concern about what they thought used to be a pond or maybe a vernal pool, and now it looks like a retention pond that has changed its configuration. So again, that might just be something, you know, prior to your decision to look into.
Do you have the answer on the wildlife corridor?
Could I submit these to the board?
Please.
It's just so they're, and I'm sorry, I only did 7, and I wrote on one, so you can share. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Richard, you're not going, right?
No, he can't go further, so actually Jeff
I
wants
won't be
one.
able to read it and get back to it, so.
Brian, you don't get one.
Get that from the file.
How about Brian?
Brian needs one.
Patricia,
Yes.
my
Well, we have to
concerned,
come down and get ours off the file.
my concerned friend is talking about a vernal pool that doesn't exist on the property. You and I actually walked that area. That's a drainage swale that happened to be a low spot between my property and the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. When my engineer made it onto my portion of it, the drainage easement for my property, the water stands in the low point in the land, which some of it is on the Division of Fisheries. I can't control that. They're well aware of that. I've got a letter from them to go in and maintain it every year and dig it out for any of the silt or anything that goes in there, and that's been long since established. I do also have a letter of the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. When they did an inspection, back when the encroachment was done, they were satisfied with our remediation. It was done 15 years ago, 12 years ago.
It was a while ago.
Long
I know. Well, it might have been 12, because this is my 13th year on the board, so.
Correct.
Yeah, and I do remember the low point there, too. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to ask any questions or comment on this? What about the board? Do you have any further questions at this point?
Just open it up.
Yeah.
Yes, Paul?
I also am troubled somewhat on the unlimited hours. It'd be nice to have a better explanation of that and why they're really necessary. It's one thing to work from 6 to 8 p.m. It's another thing, unlimited, so I think we need to consider that a little bit as well. First time I read it, I was a little troubled by it. It came up from the public as well.
Well, the board certainly will have an opportunity also to comment on a referral basis from, on the ZBA special permit that we're requesting. But, I would be happy to put together a written response to that question.
Thank you.
Brian, I am going to request, if this is in order, since Rich is not going to be able to sit on this, and he and I are the only two who have any prior experience with this property, and it is somewhat complex, I think it would be appropriate if we could have a site visit of the board. I know that was extremely instructive with the original permit. If you think that would be instructive?
We have no objection to that. The zoning enforcement officers have been to the property in the last week, and they've done their own inspection, but we have no problem.
It has nothing to do with that, Jeff. It is the fact that we're being expected to do a modification of a prior permit, and the people on the board, who, except for me, have not been involved with the prior permits that are being asked to be modified, nor do they have any boots on the ground vision of what is there. And I think if the board wants that, if they don't want it, but I'd like to get, yes.
I have a procedural question, just to inform myself. Are we doing a site plan review, or are we the special permit granting authority?
We granted the,
So it is not going to zoning Board of Appeals for the special permit granting authority?
Correct.
That's our league, and they're going to zoning for variances on other matters?
correct.
Okay, I'm all set. I just want to know
Yes.
what role we're playing here tonight. So we're doing more than a site plan review.
Yes, and
All set.
what Jeff has asked us to do is to just take this right now, the way it is, and decide on that. And I think to take it right now, the way it is, it would be important, as I thought it was before, to do a site visit. And I don't know whether the rest of the board concurs or not. If you don't feel it's necessary, that's fine. What do you think?
I'm familiar with the property, but if the rest of the board feels it'd be a good idea to go out there, I'd be more than willing to.
I'm also very familiar with the
Okay.
property.
Doug?
I would go out.
Okay,
I've passed it many times,
go.
and I've never been on the property, so I'd be interested in going.
okay. Ralph?
Yep.
So there are four of us who would be interested in visiting the property and going around it to actually see it and give us a better understanding of what is going on and what you're asking for.
Could you explain what we're asking for? There's no net change in what we're asking for, except the hours of operation.
Well, no, there are a couple of buildings that are there that weren't there on the special permit,
The
and
temporary buildings, you understand?
the hoop building's
Yeah,
temporary
they're
too.
temporary buildings.
They're temporary type structures that we can erect during the winter and take down in the spring.
Okay,
I can do that as a matter of right with a permit.
Yeah.
The building department on any parcel.
Mhm.
You can do it at your house. You're welcome to come out, but I'd like this process to be as quick and painless as possible.
and I think this will make
As
it,
much as I love working with my friends.
I think this would make it more quick and more painless if the board can have a visual of what we're dealing with. Okay? So if you could set that up as early as
Well,
convenient.
Want to, through the planner, perhaps let us know when you'd like to come out, and
All right, well, procedurally, the quorum of the board goes out,
it's a public meeting.
it's a public meeting, it's subject to the open meeting law, so,
Has to be posted.
2 and 2.
no, I'm not going to do that. So let me think for 1 minute how to do this.
Okay,
I guess property owner says, okay, for a visit, is there a particular time of day or day of the week that would be?
I'm really not interested in having a public meeting on my property, but if you want to come out one at a time, I'm more than happy to walk you around and show you the property.
Two at a
Okay,
time.
3 at a time.
uh,
yeah. However it works. And I am somewhat familiar with it. It's for the benefit of the people who are not familiar, that I thought this would be very instructional.
Why don't we work through your
Work.
planner
Yeah.
and try to
Okay.
figure out what would be good.
Then you need to continue the hearing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Figure this out. So let's,
Yeah.
So
a
can,
recommendation that, because there's some information that the board wanted with regards to
Right.
what's existing out there and a list of the site plan changes. So I would ask the board to continue the hearing till Tuesday, June 3rd, 7 o'clock, here in the town hall. And I will figure out the logistics so the board doesn't implicate itself under the open meeting law, because it's an open public hearing, it's an adjudicatory hearing. I want to.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so may I have a motion then to continue this hearing,
So moved.
as Brian said, to June 3rd, here in Town Hall at 7 o'clock?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. Okay. Thank you.
This one.
I'm going to wait for these people to clear out before we go on to the next one. Okay, next on the agenda. The applicant is Falmouth Hospitality LLC. It's a definitive plan to abandon a portion of Lantern Lane located at Lot 2 and 556 Main Street, Falmouth. And there are some notices here.
Okay, 30 abutters notices were sent by certified mail on April 25th, 2013. One returned unclaimed, 27 signed receipts were returned. Publishing dates were April 25th, May 2nd, and May 9th of 2014.
Okay.
I believe that should be 2014.
Yeah, it should be.
2013. Okay, because they've been waiting a long time otherwise.
Right, okay. And again, the same thing goes as before. We're gonna try to be as concise as possible, ask questions, express concerns, and for the applicant, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing Falmouth Hospitality LLC, in our application for under subdivision control for the abandonment of a portion of Lantern Lane. And what we're doing is taking the section that goes through the Fave parcel, which is a commercial parcel, and essentially transforming it from a legal right-of-way to an access easement, if you will. And this is to facilitate the redevelopment of this parcel. This parcel is made up of 4 separate parcels, one on the west side of Lantern and 3 parcels on the easterly side. And what we're doing to be able to facilitate the redevelopment of the overall 2 acres is to consolidate the lots into one 2-acre parcel, to get rid of the right-of-way there, but to continue the access for the driveway. The driveway will serve the project, the future project, and also serve as a connection, as it does today, to the rear, to Lantern Lane. If you know the site, there definitely is a stark transition of the commercial developed parcel. It's all paved, it's in disrepair. You get up into Lantern and it becomes the residential neighborhood. There's a streetscape up there, there's driveways, there's residences. So that's kind of the break point, the demarking point between where Lantern will continue to exist in its form as a private way, and the site proper that will be the subject of a future redevelopment plan that will come before this board. So it's the term abandonment, I think, is a little scary, stark. This was a right-of-way that was established by a plan in the 40s, So it was prior to subdivision control that created the lots, created Lantern Lane. And again, we're looking to just take a section and transform it from its existence as a right-of-way that could be used as frontage and other and the likes, similar to what right-of-ways are done for, and transform that into just an access easement for the driveway and the connection. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have, and we're looking for definitive approval. And what would happen at that point, the board would sign this plan, and this plan would be recorded at the registry.
Okay. Questions from the board? Doug?
So if it becomes abandoned, how do you ensure that there's access to Lantern Lane?
We cannot impact the existing rights of the owners up there and any rights that exist for to pass and repass. Where our rights come is because it's a private way and the Fays own both sides of it, and they control the fee, and we can transform it, but we can't impact those rights. So we have to maintain that right to pass and repass for those people.
Ralph?
So what advantage do you gain by doing this?
It allows more flexibility in the placement of buildings and as far as how the redevelopment plan comes together. We had worked cooperatively with Brian and staff in kind of conceptualizing what the redevelopment would be here and how it would be formed. And this was a suggestion, this was something that came out of those discussions to, again, be able to, this whole area is in the business redevelopment zone, as you know. And there are some goals of the business redevelopment zone that really speak to how the project addresses itself to Main Street, and then how then we transition back to the properties that are not in that business redevelopment zone. So this allows us to get the development to address Main Street and to meet the goals of the business redevelopment bylaw.
So then, therefore, you would not be bound by, for instance, setbacks from the road?
From Lantern, no. Correct.
Thank you.
Bob?
You still have to allow access to the residential area. Does that mean that you would be able to move Lantern Lane as it now exists, either move the curb cut further to one side or the other, or does it have to remain in the position that it's in now?
It doesn't have to be maintained in an exact state. We have to get the people with rights from point A to point B.
Okay.
So it does give us that flexibility. Right now, there is in the conceptual plans, in the beginnings of the plans, there's a little bit of a shift, but it's not significant at all.
Paul?
If I remember correctly, some time ago, someone appeared to build a miniature golf area on the east of that property. I guess that's gone now, is that right?
Yes, there was a proposal, I believe it came before this board at site plan review, but that's not on the table any longer.
Sir?
Rich?
Would you accomplish this by granting easements once the deeds are being drawn up? Would you accomplish this with an easement benefiting each parcel that's on Lantern Lane to burden that strip that's going to remain open to them?
That's a good question. With regard to the legal standpoints, I'll defer to counsel, but the rights exist today. And as long as we maintain those rights, there could be an argument that we don't have to formalize the grant of those easements because they exist.
except you were just talking about, however slight, a shift. And once you're talking about a shift, an easement goes over, such as this, over a way, goes over that particular way, so.
That might come into play or dictate whether or not we need to formalize.
But in any case, as far as it appears on Main Street, the entrance will look like whatever you're going to put there, that's what it is. It'll say for patrons only, but the owners of the houses in back will know that they can go through. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct. It would, for all intents and purposes, look like the entrance to the project, but the rights would still exist for the residents.
Jim?
I think, Brian, this is a question I have for you, not the applicant. If we do this, does that change our ability to condition a future site plan for them to address the terrible drainage problem that's on this particular parcel? Because that's a concern of mine. I already got my answer. I'm all set.
You're within your rights under a plan review.
But in dealing with that issue, and so it won't be modified because of, these are now one lot.
Yeah,
What's
when it
that?
comes before you under the zoning act, you're in subdivision rule.
Right.
We'll come back to you in the zoning world, and you'll have the full array of authority to look at the tree.
Okay.
If
Anybody,
it comes back.
any other questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to go to the public now for questions and concerns. And again, come to the podium, state your name, state your question or your concern. And remember, please, that this is about assembling land and about abandoning Lantern Lane. It's not about what might happen in the future, because that's a ways off yet. Yes?
Good evening, my name is Andrea McKnight. I apologize for my attire, I just came from coaching youth sports. I just had a question as to who owns Lantern Lane? Because I looked in the plan books, and looking at Plan Book 179, page 59, looking at Book 82, page 121, and looking at Book 81 and 19, it doesn't seem to me that either of the parcels in question own Lantern Lane. It seems to me that it was built as part of the subdivision owned by the subdivision itself. I understand that there's legal easements that have been addressed, and they're planning on keeping the easements in question, but my mom lives on Lantern Lane, and it's her understanding, and I think one would assume the understanding of all the neighbors, as they've all been asked to pitch in for paving reasons, that they own Lantern Lane. So I just am wondering if somebody can cite to something that I can look at referring to who owned Lantern Lane, and how somebody is going to take land that technically belongs in theory to my mom and not compensate her for it.
Do you have any question as to the any answers as to the ownership of Lantern Lane?
The board doesn't.
Legal issue.
Okay.
It's a concern question to address the board. Again, the board understands you're not the competent forum to be determining who owns what.
Okay.
But take it in, and we'll address it when you get your decision.
Okay.
Just in general, the private way, the doctrine of ownership says that if it's a private way, that the abutting owner owns to the center of the road. So the answer to the question is yes, the owners of Lantern Lane do own Lantern Lane, their section of Lantern Lane, from frontage to the center. And in this case, where the Fays own both sides, they own to the center, and therefore can do this. And that's where the terminus of the abandonment comes into play, why we still the property itself keeps going on the easterly side, but we stop the abandonment because we've got to respect the owner on the westerly side.
Okay. Thank you. That's always been my understanding, but there was a specific question on this particular road, too. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm on 7 Lantern Lane. I'm Pierre Tillier.
Okay.
And I'd like to have a definition of abandonment in the way you perceive that. I live on this, in this area. I see Lantern Lane and another road in this neighborhood as a common good of everyone. And I don't think I could say to my neighbors, well, that's all right, you can't use my half of the road. And I don't think my neighbors could tell me, you have to move it this way or that way. I think it's there, and I would like to know by what process you can move it, or close it, or abandon it. So it's a question of technique there, but at some point I need to know what my rights are to say, well, I accept that or I don't.
Okay. You can take a crack at it, what do you mean by abandonment? And then,
It's a transformation of a section of the road. And the transformation happens mostly exclusively on paper. We're taking the 250 feet from Main Street to the portion that we're demarking as the limit of the abandonment, and transforming it from a right-of-way to an access and utility easement. So we're changing the name, the semantics. The rights of the people that currently have rights to pass and repass over that section, that 250 feet. We're not talking about the upper section of Lantern. We're not doing anything to that section. But the rights in the 250 feet to pass and repass are not being changed. They're not being abandoned. They're not being impacted whatsoever.
Madam Chair?
yes, Rich.
Brian will correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're talking semantics here. When we talk about what this is now, it is under current, even though subdivision control didn't exist then, it is what we would consider to be a subdivision road, part of a subdivision road. The ownership question, I believe the explanation is correct. I'd want to see the deeds and the meets and bounds of the deeds. But assuming that to be so, it is a subdivision road, and what this applicant is proposing is that designation be abandoned as a subdivision road. Now what does it become? Well, he's not extinguishing anybody's rights who own other parts of the subdivision road to go back and forth over it. He's saying that those rights are going to be preserved. It's just that instead of going over a subdivision road, they'll be going over a driveway that they have rights in. So, is that basically correct?
Basically.
Basically, okay.
Okay. So none of their rights will be extinguished.
Just so the public knows, and the board knows, you don't even have the right to extinguish anybody's rights. You're just looking at it this way, whether you're going to transform it, its status under subdivision control, actually predecessor subdivision control law, into essentially a private driveway.
Right.
With the rights of others to pass and repass.
Going from a road abandoned to a private driveway.
That's what I said.
Right.
Okay. And that can get scary, and this is what I'm commenting on
No one's
here.
rights can be extinguished by the planning board to pass and repass.
Nor can their guests be extinguished.
The board has no rights, no power whatsoever to extinguish any rights. You're looking at this transformation.
Doesn't affect anybody's address, it doesn't affect anybody's taxes.
But it's an arcane subject, it might take a while to
Allison Leshin, 15 Lantern Lane. So it actually makes me nervous almost for the opposite reason. I understand we'll maintain the right to drive through there if it becomes a driveway, but are there certain protections or assumptions afforded by under the subdivision regulations that go away when it becomes the private driveway of a business, whether it have to do with character of the neighborhood, or you're allowing your 500 customers a day to drive down that road, or other things that wouldn't probably be allowed or assumed in a subdivision, that now all of a sudden it's become the property of a business and the zoning has changed to a commercial thing. How does that affect who drives the other way down Lantern Lane?
Did you have some? You wanted to say something?
Just so the board knows and the public knows that whether it's a private way, whether it's a town-accepted way, whether it's an easement or a driveway, the zoning that's in place for the town meeting would allow for any amount of cars to traverse, whether it's a state highway or whatever way, kind of way it is. I just want this board to know, and the public to be reassured that you can't affect your title to your property, all right, by anything that happens here in front of this board. That's what we're talking about. The status of it under subdivision control is different, correct? But the property owner has certain rights to ask the board to do this, and the board has the right to consider it.
I think what I was hearing is different from your question. Your question was that if you have a significant business development here, and this is a driveway to their business, but it continues down a private way, is there any way that you could control the numbers of people using your private road? Is that what I was hearing?
That's essentially the concern. I'm just wondering if this switch in zoning status changes that. That's essentially the concern, obviously, is that if it ends up being,
We're not changing zoning. She keeps saying zoning switch.
or whatever the term is. I don't know, may not be using the right term, but you're changing it from a subdivision road to the business district, whatever. But
All right, we'll try to sort it all out for you. My sense is like it will continue, but the zoning's in place since 2004. The board's not changing the zoning. The board doesn't have the right to distinguish any rights that you have in your title or in your deed for anybody who has property on Lantern Lane. And that if in fact you have a private way and you want to, as the owners of that private way, perhaps restrict who and what and perhaps the amount of traffic that might appear on it, the planning board cannot affect those rights either. So if you have a private way and you all want to get together and restrict who can use it as a private matter, that would be within your rights as I understand.
So we can get that further defined then, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, without going too far afield.
Right, I understand,
As a
yes.
courtesy, we can't extinguish any rights. And if they want to exercise certain rights that you have in your titles, which I don't know what they are, this board can't extinguish those rights.
You will still have the right, the sign that's there now, you'll have the right to maintain the in as unattractive condition as it is now. It should be. You would also have the right to have, if everybody in the neighborhood wanted to get together, put in some kind of electronically controlled gate that only the neighbors would have to have the code to, so that you could go back and forth and nobody else could. And that, in that instance, that would, having this other thing there that would not, in itself wouldn't want the general public going through its property, whatever entity it is, you'd probably be in a good position then to pave your road, because you could control access much better than you do now.
Okay, but
I'm just
that's for the future,
Well,
Rich.
these people have these
But I
concerns.
know, and so you've given enough, because
Okay.
we're trying to limit
They have
what's
these
being
concerns,
said
and
tonight,
I
too.
just want to address them.
Yeah, and you did.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hayward, I think you were next up.
I guess I'm looking at this from the other end. If I'm the owner of the two pieces of property, and I have this piece of property, which is a driveway, but there is this road over there, what do I have to do if I want to build something? We heard them say, well, that they could put some other access for this road. What do I have to do if I want to build on that property? Thank you.
Okay. I believe that was answered. If it wasn't? Okay, but that's a question then, okay. You're next. I don't know your name, so I'm calling.
I'm Robert Walker. I'm with Falmouth Hospitality LLC.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name's Ed Kirk. I'm an attorney in Osterville, and I'm here representing Matthew and Davian Gould, who are at on Lantern Lane, Lot 5. I had sent a letter over to the board today with a copy of their deed and the original subdivision plan, and I expressed some concerns about this business of access. What you have before you procedurally is a request to modify a previous subdivision, and that takes place under General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81W. So it fits into a certain legal category. It's not just a petition for abandonment. What you're being asked to do is modify a previous subdivision. And the statute is very clear. It says, no modification, amendment, or rescission or changes in such plan, in this case it's the 1947 plan, shall affect AFFECT the lots in such subdivision without the consent of the owner or owners of such lots and the holders of the mortgage, if any. So the statute is designed to protect people who have purchased in good faith lots in a subdivision where they have rights over a subdivision road. And there's some case law that talks about what do we mean by the word affect. And when you start getting into access, then you're starting to affect the rights of the owners. What they have now is unfettered access out onto Main Street. And what's proposed is basically they're now going to have to run the gauntlet between two parts of a commercial project, basically riding through a parking garage. And it looks like the plan has some berms, and there's going to be some encroachment coming into the 40-foot layout. I don't think they're going to have the full 40-foot layout to travel. And so I think that's a question that you have to consider, you know, in the broad scheme of things under this section of the statute. Basically what they're creating is a dead end. They want to create a new lot and make the subdivision road part of their lot. And it is semantics, because what they're saying is, but you're still going to have all the rights you had before you made this change in terminology. The point, the end game for the developer, and I don't know who Falmouth Hospitality LLC is, and I don't think they own this property. The property still is in the name of the Fays, and there's been no representation that they have a purchase and sale agreement, or they even have any standing to be here to ask this to be done. But what they have in mind is creating one lot, which will give them sufficient area to create this new, very large commercial venture. But I don't think, you know, I think at the very least you should obtain from them a covenant that specifically sets forth exactly what rights and an acknowledgement of the rights of the folks who live on Lantern Lane to pass through. And I think you need much more information about whether they're going to intend to use Lantern Lane heading, I believe it's north, are their guests, their suppliers, their trash haulers, are they going to be using that portion of Lantern Lane to access? I think these are things that, in the interest of the neighbors, ought to be explored at an early stage in the proceedings. The other point I would make is this, that even if they do provide the board and therefore the neighbors with some covenant or statement that access will not be affected, I don't believe you can then approve the creation of a lot under Falmouth zoning, because what you're going to still have basically are two lots divided by a street. They don't want to call it a street, but it is still going to be, they're going to be two separate parcels devoted to a combination of use, hotel and parking lot, but you really don't have one lot under zoning. You come down Lantern Lane, and you can keep going down Lantern Lane, apparently even if the building is there. But when you step over that line, even though your rights are the same and the width is the same and the layout's the same, they want you to call it something other than a street or a right-of-way. They want to call it an easement or a driveway. I don't think it qualifies under the Falmouth zoning definition of lot and lot area and street. I don't think that this proposal qualifies as a lot. So those are the comments that I would offer at this time on behalf of my clients.
Mr. Kirk, thank you for providing a copy of this quitclaim deed. I notice your clients have the right to use the way known as Fay Lane Road. Now, that's the section of what we call Lantern Lane that goes through the Fay property, am I correct?
I believe that's right.
And that's the property that the Fay companies have always used for trucks, for deliveries, for work trucks and so forth. So that kind of activity has already gone on there for decades, am I correct?
To be honest with you, I'm not all that familiar with what's going on there.
Okay, but historically that's the case. But in any case, no ownership right is given by this deed to that section of road.
No.
Just a user right.
That's right. It's an access.
So as long as they have a user right, whether we call it an easement or a covenant, what difference does it make what you call it?
Well, that's part of the second point. What the applicant wants to do is take, a horse, and call it something else, but it's still a horse, and that goes to the point of we don't have one lot. I mean, I'm glad to know that they'll still be able to go to Main Street by going through their structure.
Maybe that'll be the configuration, but as long as you can ride it, what's the difference, what you call it? If you get the same ride...
I'm not talking now about, probably a poor analogy, I'm not talking about the access. What I'm saying is that if they acknowledge the point that our rights are exactly the same as they were before this change in nomenclature or designation, then it's not a lot, it's still two lots. And you can't approve that as one lot for purposes of zoning.
We'll get an opinion.
Yeah, we're going to have to get an opinion on that.
I don't think, okay, we don't have to go into that anymore.
But the question has been raised, and we will get a legal opinion from our town council on that. Thank you for raising it.
Thank you. And with respect to the first question, I think that has to be decided. It can't be decided until you have seen from the applicant the nature of the rights that they are intending that we have. If they put something down for you in writing and say they're going to have exactly the same rights that they now have by virtue of their deeds and the plan, that's the situation that should be presented to town council for an opinion as to whether or not we have one lot.
And Brian has that down, because that is important. We all, I think, acknowledge that. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to ask a question? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Alan Fleer, West Falmouth Highway. And first of all, I think as the
applicants have mentioned about the ownership of the road. I think it's very important to know who owns the fee in the road, because for these 3 or 4 lots, they would certainly be a minor part of the ownership of Lantern Lane. So I think it is very important. Secondly, I don't like things that are done piecemeal, and as a way to avoid possibly regulatory oversight. In addition, the Nye Road parking lot, and now we have this, and I just would like to see some transparency, please. Okay?
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think the deed answered Alan's question there. It wasn't talking about Lantern Lane, it was talking about Fay Lane. And it said that Fays reserved the right to grant others the use, which means they retained the title to at least that section. Not
Right.
that's the rest
And
of
we
Lantern
heard
Lane. To this
Mr. Fleer's
section,
objection
they
to
retained
it.
the title to it.
So we've heard Mr. Fleer's objection, that he would like to see everything come out all at once, but unfortunately, this is a massive project, and that's not the way this sort of thing comes about. So we are seeing it. What?
Madam Chairman, could you repeat, you made a statement, this is a lump project. Could you repeat?
This is a large project.
A large project.
And it has to take it stepwise.
Thank you.
So that's why it's hard to say, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen, because we don't have that before us at this point in time. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes? Yes, sir.
I would like to add about this large project.
Please go up there, because this is being heard, and
Yeah. I would like to know if we will have a full knowledge of what the overall project is before we have to make any decision.
I believe that to be true. Is that correct, Brian?
What's in front of the board is the modification of the plan.
Oh.
That's what's in front of the board at the moment. Now, there are some intricacies with regards to the combination of lots that may or may not get developed in the future. But so the only thing in front of the board is a subdivision.
Okay, so am I right to assume that there will be no decision before the board has made its own decision on this?
I don't.
For the abandonment?
The stepwise process is going to be that this is a combination of lots, and the board will rule on that, an abandonment, a potential abandonment of Lantern Lane, and a combination of lots. That's the first thing that has to happen before anything can occur beyond that. And whether or not that can, whatever else might be proposed beyond that, there's no decision at this point. It's got many, many steps to go through.
And we will be kept informed.
Absolutely. Everything is transparent on that. So at any step along the way, there could be a halt. Okay?
Is that right that he'll be kept informed? He's already been notified. He's not going to continue to be kept informed.
Well, no, I mean, when new hearings come up,
Additional
follow.
notices, Brian, questions up there. Additional notices on every hearing.
Those who are entitled to a notice under zoning or under the Commission Act will be noticed.
Okay.
I would recommend that people who are affected by this watch the planning board agendas, because we notice people who are within a certain distance when things affect the property. So please watch the planning board agendas for this to come up. Okay. Yes, sir. Please.
Hi, my name's Jerry Smith. I live on 27 Nye Road. I don't want to muddy the waters, so these are all, they're bringing to the point the gentleman just came up. I won't get a notice on this lot here because I'm on 27 Nye Road. However, this lot is directly tied with the parking lot that's going to be with that lot, which affects me. So that's my concern.
That parking lot has been removed.
The parking lot next to 27 Nye Road.
Yes, the parking lot that currently, you'll see later on this evening. The one that was labeled seasonal, that's gone,
Okay.
okay? Any change in that, you would be notified.
No, but I'm just saying, this lot, this is directly, the Lantern Lane is directly tied with that. In different method, I'm just worried about how it affects us on Nye Road, yet we won't get it, because I'm not considered a butter to that property.
I don't
However,
know
it can
the
be
answer
tied
to
together.
that.
It's just a question, I'm not,
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
My generalized answer is watch the planning board agendas,
Okay.
okay? That way, you're going to know what is going on,
But
for sure.
If it was,
If you were right next door to it, yes, you would be noticed.
right, but I just want to use like the transparency word comes up, where why doesn't everything, you know what I mean? If it's transparent, why isn't everyone know? Like, I'm confused on, like, I don't know any of this, like, I just.
No, because you weren't notified on it, because you're
Right.
not an abutter. You're not a direct abutter
Right,
to this.
that's where my
Yeah.
confusion's coming.
So that's, Doug.
So I don't know this, but I suspect that they probably want to work in steps, and see what's feasible before they do a full-blown plan.
Mhm. That's why it's a large plan, and you
Right.
have to go stepwise on it. And at any point during the proceedings, it may or may not succeed. And they all know that, too. Is there anyone else from the, yes, sir.
Robert Dugan, 596 Main Street. Just a question on notice, and I don't know if it's been updated, but the ownership of the Mariner Motel changed last week. And I just want to make sure that on whatever the notice is, that, because I don't think it's been updated in some of the town records yet, that they just make sure that the new owners, wherever that mailing address is, are just updated on the list.
I don't know anything about
It's
that.
certified by the Board of Assessors.
Yeah.
And it's the only list the board can accept. So whoever owns that property needs to get the Board of Assessors.
To just change it.
To change it, because it'd be up to them to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, as I stated earlier, I'm Robert Walker with Falmouth Hospitality. I'm the developer, and I just want to have everybody understand, this is very simple. You have to crawl before you walk. We're not trying to be underhanded or devious or hide anything from anybody, but this is a process, and we're going to go through the process, and we have to come back in front of this board. We all know that. But before we come back in front of this board with the overall plan, we need to address this as an issue. Otherwise, the plan that we propose may or may not be feasible. So it's just a process that we're going through. We're not trying to hide anything. Everybody will be notified, and there'll be full disclosure by the appropriate methods.
Thank you. You said it much more clearly than I did.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that explanation. Is there anyone else who wishes to, yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. Are you
Please come up there.
Take comments on Nye Road, on the other proposal?
No.
Or if we have a concern, we should speak now?
Not on Nye Road, because that has been closed.
That's the last item on the agenda.
Yes, it's a,
It's not a hearing.
it's a decision. It is not a hearing. So the hearing has been closed on Nye Road, and that is a decision.
Then I would like to.
Okay. If it's on Nye Road, we can't take
No,
it.
it's on the.
Okay.
I'd like to start out by saying that.
Please state your name.
Oh, Christy Baxter, 8 Settlers Path. Now, I'm on the other side of the neighborhood, but I was asked to come here by my daughter. And she said she has been every summer since she was 5 in Falmouth. She plans to live here when she's older. She wants to be a marine biologist. And she said, I want the neighborhood to be as it is now when I'm grown up and I live here. So even though I'm on the other side of the neighborhood, what happens on Main Street and on this area is something that more than abutters care about. So I just want to
Thank you.
say that. And I also want to say that the development here and the Nye Road parcel are connected. They're all part of a single proposal. And I think that when you make incremental decisions, the next time the developer comes in with a proposal, the circumstances have changed. For example, on Nye Road, the proposal is to demolish the residential properties. So when this whole puzzle starts to come in, the pieces will look different based on the decisions, the incremental decisions that are being made now. This decision
We understand
to
what you're
consolidate-
saying, but you are commenting on Nye Road, and that is a closed issue at this
I
point.
understand, but I'm just making the point that this is a, quote, massive project. It has impacts beyond the direct abutters. And it's something that I think the board needs to think very carefully about as it makes each individual decision, because these will have an impact on our neighborhoods and on what the future of these neighborhoods looks like.
Thank you.
Could I just make a statement?
Yes, Bob.
These are two separate things
Yes.
by different developers. It is not one developer working two sides of the street.
Right.
So people have to be clear on that. Individual property owners do have rights to whatever the zoning allows and what those rights are. So we don't want to confuse it. When you say it's a massive project, it makes it sound like it's one developer coming in and taking over a chunk of town. And that is not true.
That it is, Bob is absolutely correct. That is why I really couldn't accept your comments on the Nye Road.
We have to take each thing individually as it's presented to us by an applicant.
So just one more comment with regard to the piecemeal, that for me, it would be more comfort. I get the developers, I need to know this before I jump through this, before I go to this step. But, for the neighborhood, I think it would be more comforting to know, even if it's a back of the envelope sketch, this is what we're heading toward ultimately. This is what we have in mind. This is the kind of use we're looking for, the kind of traffic we expect. No, we're not going to let anybody turn down Lantern Lane. If we know sort of what's coming, I think we'd be more comfortable with this change, for instance. But making this, seeding this in a vacuum is much scarier and more threatening because we don't know what's coming after that. And so, just as a suggestion to the developers, I think it would help their cause if we knew what was coming.
As you heard, they said they're not trying to be secretive, and I
know that.
suspect they would potentially, I can't speak for them, but I suspect they would potentially be willing to meet with some of the neighbors to allay your concerns.
Ma'am, this decision here allows them to do nothing.
Right.
They cannot move the road, they cannot block the road, all they can do is call it something else. That's all it allows them to do. When they come in, when they want to build anything or do anything to this road, they have to come back here. And you on Lantern Lane will get full notice of it, of what they plan to do, and you will see the plans. And you will get to comment on it, and you will get the opportunity, if you don't like it, to persuade us why you don't like it. But that's not tonight. That's...
Their concern is they'd like to have a little bit of pre-knowledge,
I
and that's...
understand the legality of it
yeah.
and the technical, I'm just saying kind of...
But the thing that the gentleman said, that you have to understand is, before they come in with this plan, that might be a very nice thing for your neighborhood, you don't know yet. Before they can even come into it, they want to know what they can do with this section of what is now called Lantern Lane. That's
I
all
think
they
she
want.
understands that, Rich. Yeah, it is. Okay.
It costs a lot of money to do these plans.
Nancy, do you have something new to say? Do you have something,
Generalized comment that I would like to make.
if it is very succinct and it has to do with this? Because we are going on in time here.
I am Nancy Hayward. I live in West Falmouth. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 5. The business redevelopment area was voted on by town meeting, I don't know what year. And I will say that these two cases are not the kind of repercussions on residential neighborhoods that I had anticipated when I voted for a business redevelopment zone. And I think when the business redevelopment bylaw is applied, that there needs to be careful consideration about effects on residential neighborhoods.
There would be at that point, but we're not there yet. Okay.
I have one thing.
Yes, Doug?
So there is one important ramification of this change, which I'm not sure we're making clear, is that if this is changed from a road to a easement access, it eliminates the setbacks and allows buildings to be built closer to the road. So that's a big change. So I don't want to just not point that out.
Yeah. And we're also asking town council to give some opinion on this, too. So I think at this point, we need a, yes, Ralph?
I just have one question for Mr. Pasnola. Is there only one current owner on both sides of the road that you are proposing to abandon at this time?
Yes,
Thank you.
one entity.
Thank you.
Well, it also happens to be the owner of the section of road.
Right.
It is 3 separate parcels, but Fay owns all of them.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
So I think at this time, we need to have a continuance to,
Tuesday, June 3rd, 7 o'clock here in Town Hall. We continue to my recommendation. Chair.
so I need a motion, please.
So moved?
Okay, so moved to continue this hearing to Tuesday, June 3rd, 7 o'clock, Town Hall. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained.
Chair, can I be excused for a minute while people are calling out?
Sure, please.
Thank you.
You know, it might be time to take a little bit of a break here, too.
Richard, maybe you should have run for re-election. This is getting good.
We should,
Right in.
do we have to go in recess?
Going back into session. Next on the agenda is a discussion. The applicant is CJM Development LLC, site plan review to erect a 4,450 square foot office and retail building on .56 acres located at 707 T-Ticket Highway, East Falmouth. For the applicant, please.
Where's that? This one right here.
Where's the locus? I want to see where this is.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name
What's
is
across
Dan
street?
Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport. And here on behalf of CGM for what we consider to be a nice little redevelopment on a fairly rundown portion of the town. This is right on Route 28 T-Ticket Highway. It's on the south side of the road, and it's currently a red building. It's a four-bedroom house that hasn't been occupied in a couple of years now, and it's a bit in a rundown condition. Cape and Islands Tire is the next site to our south, or actually I'm calling it south, but it's just to the east of us. We're on the south side of Route 28.
East.
Chris Megan, who is the principal of On the Water and CJM, is here with me, as well as Conserve, who is the builder for the project. They have prepared some nice building plans in a part of your package. Pursuant to Section 309, or 300-9 of the Falmouth bylaw, we've filled out the requisite Form SP2 and the site plans, which are dated 4/24, passed in the drainage calculations. Mike Kisslinger from Council is here if there's any questions on the building plans, and of course, the all-important filing fee. The proposal is for an attractive mixed-use building. It's principally office, but there is some accessory-type retail use in the front, and there's some accessory paved parking. We placed it to the rear. Chris and I met briefly with Brian in the fall, and he had pointed us, we were thinking about doing some handicap out front where there's some existing paving, and he's informed us that no, that was preferred in the back, so we pulled that to the back. We adjusted the side buffer on his recommendation to fully comply with the bylaw, and sited all the parking to the rear of the building. So we think it'll be a very attractive layout. Of course, there's some lighting improvements, some landscaping improvements, and a good deal of drainage improvements, as well as a new septic system. The one aspect of this site is that there's two oak trees in this area here that are out in the highway layout, so we'll have to request from Mass DOT to remove those trees. They're right in the line of sight as you look to the east. One of them's got a big gnarl that's carved out of it. It's ready to, it looks like it'll fall over, and the other one is back a little bit. It's a little bit healthy, but it's right in the way of how you look to the east. So as part of the application to Mass DOT, we've got that in there to remove those two trees, and to the extent that this board has to look at that, we'd certainly point that out and make sure that everyone is cognizant of that. The coastal pond overlay is a factor on this site. It's 240 Article 21 of the zoning section, and per 240-98B, we're going to have a lesser impact on the site than existing conditions, which is important. While we have an existing 4-bedroom house which is grandfathered with a flow of 440 gallons per day, the proposed use will generate less than 325 gallons per day. So under your Section 240-101 exemptions, this board may exempt an applicant if the development will not increase or not result in an increase in nutrient loading, which is exactly the case in this instance. So we respectfully request the board grant an exception for this case under that 240-101A2. We feel that the layout fully conforms with the town design standards and setbacks, the building is attractive, and that this redevelopment will have a positive impact on the neighborhood and the town. We'd appreciate your support in our endeavors. Chris, the owner, is anxious to proceed and make this a little bit nicer site than it is today, and we'd certainly look forward to your approval at the earliest date possible. Brian and his staff were nice enough to provide me with some comments, so just to go through that a little bit. One of the items that came up was a landscape plan. We'd initially proposed some landscaping on the site plan, but we broke out a sheet that has a little bit more detail, and so I'll pass that out, a small copy to the board, just and go over that very briefly. So this is titled Landscape Plan. We do have a landscape architect in our office who can review and stamp if needed. However, we didn't endorse this. Just let me know if you do need that level of review. But what Chris would like to do is introduce, similar to some in the town hall, is like a dunescape out in the front. He's a fishing and outfitter. I should mention it's on the Water Magazine. It's outdoors, very Cape Cod-y. And he thought a dune with some American beach grass out front would really be an eye-catching and nice match for the area. And so that's on the west side. The structure is set up to kind of be a rustic barn look with an attractive cupola. And this will accent it on the west side. We've introduced some plantings that is a little bit lower. The grade falls off a bit on the west side. We're retaining it with a wall, but where it drops a little bit, we'll put some plantings along that wall. We've called out some rhodies and hydrangeas with the botanical names and so forth there. The majority of it would be loam and seed in buffers around there. Against a building, I have it drawn green now, but Chris informed me he'd rather have the dunescape all along the building there, just a couple tufts of grass and the sand, he thought would look nice. There's some, if you look carefully at the plans, there's some bollard style, kind of looks like a boat dock there, several posts along there, so it'll look a nice nautical look to it. There's, so that's, the landscape plan is generally fairly simple. There's not too much to landscape on it, but we'll dress up the front nicely. We'll put some trees in the back, some 3-inch caliper red maples. There's fencing around the dumpster. We've got the handicap access to the rear figured. Nice new current Title V drainage septic system in the back, and fully compliant drainage in the front. One of staff's comment was to add 6 inches to the stone, and so we could certainly do that and hand it in as part of your approval or for the next meeting. And I think I've covered most. Oh, traffic was one other thing. This is, you get 10 or 12 trips per day as a residence, and we took a look at the retail and the office use, and it'll go up a bit. I think the difference was 80 vehicle trip ends, come and go, and that's 2 out of the day, and so 20% of that was, I believe, 16 trips we had to mitigate. So our thought was probably to have Chris work up a traffic ride-sharing program for some of his employees. He has a good, handful of employees, and so if some of them can ride share, we could probably meet that standard. But we'd be open to work with staff on that. Other than that, I think it's a great project, and we certainly appreciate any comments you have, and I'll be glad to answer it to the best of my ability.
Bob?
I didn't get a chance to drive out. I'm familiar with that area, but this exact location. Is the new building proposed in the same location as the existing building?
Very much so. Look on the back of the existing. So it's similar with respect to the street. So there it is there. It's a wider footprint now, but it's proximate to the street. Here will be a little bit gable end towards it, and maybe set back just a hair more.
Here's the existing. But that's very different.
Anybody else? You said it's an attractive building. Do you have a drawing of what we...
Yes, absolutely. I could bring the board up. We did pass in plans with the application, and we can give you a look at it. So the view from the street, and Mike can go over it in better detail as he works for the builder, but I'll give it a shot. It's a nice Cape Cod, would be reminiscent of a barn look on the front. There's a false ramp into the front, so it looks like you could ride a horse in or whatnot, and a nice signage, the shingles, of course, a nice cupola, some of the symbols for fish that are trademarks of what we plan on doing there. And, so very Cape Cod, nice pitch on the roof, nice trim accents. The windows will have lights in them, so it'll look somewhat historic. So hopefully that'll be a nice, attractive building. Again, you're looking at this mainly as you drive by.
Thank you. Does anybody have further comments, questions? Yes, Jim?
Not that T-Ticket Highway is the greatest place to ride a bike, but if you want to do some mitigation, what about some bicycle racks or parking?
I wouldn't ride there.
Well, people do. People ride to work all over the place.
Well, if that'll do the trick,
No, I'm just...
Yeah, and a bike path may be built, and then it'll work even better. But some people, it's an athletic type organization, that's for sure. They all outdoorsman types, and we could probably tuck some in the back under the porch even, keep them dry. Yeah, that might work.
Okay. Doug?
So in the coastal pond overlay, I always try to encourage people to use the denitrifying septics, but as you pointed out, you're reducing the flow, so maybe it's less of an issue here. I'd like to still have you consider it.
It is a surprisingly little flow in an office, and we sure would appreciate not, a lot of those will generate electricity and have some carbon, usage, so we're very hopeful not to use it, would appreciate not having to, in light of the special factors going down.
Yes, Bill?
It's my understanding there's no sidewalk in front of this property, is that correct?
No, it's just, and we're a bit on the outside of a curve as well. No, no sidewalk. Is the other side of the street, Chris? Other side of the
It's on
street.
the other
there's a
side of
little
the
bit,
street,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Further questions, comments? Okay, is there anybody from the public? Yes, sir, please come up to the podium.
My name is Ming Chao Vu, and I'm a property owner of the adjacent property. And as far as it's concerned, I just want to make sure that the new erection building here would not affect our parking lot with like pawning. I understand they're trying to raise the level of the land higher. So right now we have flats between the border. So what the consequence going to be effect on us when they raise the land higher?
Okay, this gentleman can answer that.
So we appreciate that comment. It's a legitimate concern because there are, some drainage issues in the area. Right now, there's a bit of water coming from the neighbor onto our side here, which we have to infiltrate. And right now, some of that water very likely ends up in this area here and infiltrates on this property. And so as the gentleman pointed out, when we level this up, what would happen? And so the answer to that question is that we will be fully compliant with all the regulations and taking all the water that's coming onto our property, every drop that falls on our property, the roof dry wells, the gutters, the downspouts, every drop will be taken care of here, but there could still be some puddling here because there's a fence along this parking lot and it's kind of low right there, basically the low point. I don't know that there's much formal drainage, but it's a fairly small drainage area, and you could probably handle it with a little stone drip edge down in that area there. The grade is much lower to the back, but obviously you can't just pitch it and run it onto the neighbor's property. The other thing that I would point out is that in my looking at this, we're very careful to create a flow line along Route 28 here. There's a good bit of water that comes down in this area here, and in looking at it, I couldn't tell for sure, but it looked to me like some might be coming onto your property here from the road. And I think that if we were out there, or if a small berm was created in this area, then the water would continue on down to the large drainage system in the bottom, wouldn't run down your driveway and puddle there. So if we could stop it there, I think you've got 90% of your problem solved. And then, of course, no flow would be coming from our property. So it would just be water that falls on your own property. And, so that would be more or less your responsibility, but we certainly wouldn't be making it any worse. By treating all the water that's on our side, and again, probably someone should pay attention to a little bit of a berm out front.
Okay. Does anyone else in the public have a question or a comment on this? Okay. Sure.
My name is Chris Meehan. I'm the owner of the lot and the publisher of On the Water magazine and television. Just so you folks know the person behind CGM Development. I've lived in this community now 20 years, raised my 4 kids here, and was fortunate enough to buy my share of the company, my partner's share of the company from Bill Huff at the Enterprise, and really start a magazine that had 5,000 subscribers. Now up to, we send out nearly 52,000 magazines from Philadelphia to Maine. The other thing along the lines of the concern with the bikes, I'm proud of the fact that I live a quarter mile from this location, and there was an article in the newspaper going back, a couple months ago about cleaning up that T-ticket area as far as the curb appeal on many of these. I think that this building will do that. As far as the bikes, I plan on walking to work. So as far as that reduction, I live in Falmouth Landing, which you can, a driver and an 8-iron, and I'm there. And as far as, I'm proud of the fact that I want to say it's either 6 or 7 of our employees are in East Falmouth, very close to that area. So that as far as reducing it, I don't foresee that being a problem. It does worry me a little bit as far as the sidewalk on the other side with Route 28 traffic during the summer with bikes and such. But as far as reducing the traffic, I don't foresee that being an issue whatsoever. And as a member of the you know, I should say, living in 02536 in the T-ticket area, I'm very proud of that area. And I'd love to see me be part of the first step to kind of give that area a facelift, if you will. So, but if anyone had any questions for me, I'm here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from the board? Because I didn't see any more hands in the public. Okay, then we will take this up June 3rd. Our agenda for June 3rd is starting to look like tonight's agenda. Thank you very much.
So it's continued, we'll do time and date, 7 o'clock on the, okay, sounds good. I appreciate it, and if there's any other staff comments, we'll see if we can address them quickly, so we'll come to kind of look at it before we leave. Thank you.
And I'm sure Brian will be in touch with you if he has.
Appreciate it very much.
Okay, thanks. We move on. Decision, the applicant is Ryan Development LLC, site plan review to erect a mixed-use building consisting of 3,000 square feet of retail space. And, oops, what didn't we do?
Point of order.
Okay, we have to go back to CJM.
Yeah, we didn't read the abutters notice. So 7 abutters notices were sent by regular mail on May 5th. Nothing returned. Publishing dates in the Enterprise were May 2nd and May 9th, 2014.
Okay,
So
now we got that
continue.
cleaned up.
We can continue.
So we can move on to decision. Ryan Development LLC, site plan review to erect a mixed-use building consisting of 3,000 square feet of retail space and 2 second-story apartments on .68 acres, along with associated parking, drainage, and landscaping located at 587 Main Street and 17 and 19 Nye Road. And there have been some changes to the plan that was submitted to us. And, you know, you all might want to move up a little closer if you'd like to be able to see these changes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, Joe Pesnoa from Hancock Associates representing Ryan Development. We did both from staff comments and from Brian's comments as well as Scott's comments from the engineer, we did incorporate changes. The largest of which is the removal of the seasonal parking. So you can see on the plan, the area to the south of the 18-car parking lot is just an open area. In addition, we made some fairly substantial changes to the drainage. And going over the drainage with Scott, we understand there's a drainage problem in the Main Street area at the corner of Nye. So we've increased substantially the size of our underground infiltration system on site to not have any impact or any connection to that system on Main. Additionally, we've addressed the configuration of the parking lot a little bit with regards to the 18 spaces, but other than that, it's the same 3,000 square foot retail that may be split into 2 and two residential units above.
Okay.
We did present a letter to Brian on May 5th that went item by item as far as the responses.
Okay, I see some puzzlement on the neighbors' faces. They may have some questions of you.
Gary Gerard at 28 Nye Road. It's just changed a lot because we were here a couple weeks ago and there was a big parking lot. What's going to be in this space here? Is it going to be green or is it going to be paved? Is it going to be...
You're supposed to address him through me. It's awkward,
I'm sorry.
but...
Well, I'm wondering what's going to be in this space over here where they had the parking lot before. It's just a big empty space. Is it going to be paved? Is it, I mean, I live right here. It's going to be the view out the front window, so I just...
And this gentleman lives right at the edge of it, from my recollection. So if it would be helpful if you would describe to them.
What this plan before the planning board is doing is just leaving that space as an open space. It's envisioned to be grass. I don't want to hide our intentions. Our intentions are to move forward with the permitting of that. What we were, in dealing with Brian and staff on the issue, it was a matter of the right venue and the right approvals for that seasonal parking lot. That it wasn't correct to have it before this board under site plan review, that it needed a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So there will be there has been an application been made to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit for the parking lot. It is still our intent to make that a seasonal parking lot, to make it a gated parking lot, and to make it a grass paver parking lot. So, but that is a matter for a different board on a different night.
So it would still continue to be grass, because you say grass paver,
Yes.
and you would still plan on, along the property line there, to put a buffer of plantings, is that correct?
Yes, there's still, what we did is we left on this plan before this board, that very healthy planting within the 15-foot strip on that southerly property line. So when the board approves this plan, those plantings will be part of that approval.
Okay.
There's no curb cut.
Do you have any additional? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jerry Smith. I'm on 27 Nye Road, which is this property right here. I had spoken to them before about what was going in there. At the last meeting, maybe I didn't read it correctly, but these were two separate proposals, and now suddenly they're being considered as one. And I was told I couldn't comment on the parking lot because that was not on that agenda for that night. Now suddenly it's involved in a decision together.
It's still not. It's not under our purview.
I don't understand.
We cannot, under what we are doing, we cannot. That is the Zoning Board of Appeals that allows that kind of thing, and they've got a hearing scheduled. I don't know if it's scheduled yet.
I believe it is.
Okay, you can check the date on that with the ZBA, and at that point, you can make comments on that area for parking.
So I'm just confused as to why is 1718 attached to this decision tonight? Like, what decision? That's what I'm confused with.
They've made it a parcel. They're putting it together.
Right, but it wasn't discussed at the last meeting. It wasn't, that 1718 is the parking lot, so if you can't, do you know what I'm, am I not
We're not
explaining
seeing
myself well?
it, yeah, no, you are, but we're not seeing it as a parking lot. We
Right.
are seeing it as the building, with the parking associated only with the needs of that building, the two potential businesses and the two apartments above. And the parking that is provided there right now is for that particular building and the uses of that
This
building.
parking is, he just said it's it's going to be gated, and it's not for this parking.
We're not hearing that
No, no,
currently.
I'm saying that's what he said.
And I know that's what he
And
said.
I'm not upset about any of this,
Yeah.
I'm just confused. I'm not, don't take my, I'm just confused.
No, I understand, and I'm trying to
Can
clarify
I
it.
offer?
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
So in order to make that building function, they needed a parking lot. So they've used part of that other lot. As you see, that parking lot goes encroaching into it a little bit there.
Yep.
So they needed to use that to make this part work. Maybe later on, if they get permission, they might use that other lot, but that's
As
not
the
for
C-
us,
as the
that's not
gated
for us
lot.
to decide.
Okay. I just don't want to miss
Another
my
board hears that.
opportunity to say,
Yeah.
because this is, 15 feet is nothing. This 15 feet is less than you to me right now.
Right.
And my house is only 5 feet from that property line. So this is why I just don't want to miss my opportunity to say, help,
Right.
can we,
Yes.
I'm
And-
not trying to throw a wrench in their works, trust me.
I
And
understand
they've been
that.
very good talking to me, but I don't want to be rolled over either.
No, and I understand that, and it's the Zoning Board of Appeals that you would need to make your comments about that too.
Okay.
But from what they've portrayed tonight, that is going to be grass pavers, and what we heard originally with their plantings along your border would be, you were happy with that protection, as it was portrayed at our hearing.
No, I was happy. I said I was happy, but we weren't considering that.
Okay,
You know what I mean? I want to make sure, like 12-foot lights in my house. I don't want things
No.
like that. So happy, yeah.
No, you aren't
'cause
supposed
you've
to get
seen-
lights in your
Right, you've
house.
seen a lot. I mean, everyone's seen a lot in town. It's horrible. It's been horrible. So,
Yeah, no, you
but I
aren't
just want to make
supposed to.
sure.
Any lights that are on any project are supposed to be contained right there. They're
Right,
down
well, I don't
lights.
want the 12-feet, I want the 5-foot lights. I want, every hospital parking lot has them, things like that, but that's not for this consideration. I just
Right.
wanted to make
It's
sure
not.
that I'm not giving up my ability to say, on this, because I am nervous about it.
Understandably,
Okay.
yes. Okay, thank you very much. Nancy?
Nancy Hayward, West Falmouth. I was interested in seeing what it was they were going to have for parking for the building at 587 Main Street. And I guess I have a comment or a question, Madam Chairman, through you to
Okay.
Mr. Curry. Is there anything, I will say that I get the feeling that the applicant may know what his date is at the Zoning Board of Appeals. If this is so, Madam Chairman, would you ask Mr. Curry if there's any regulation that prevents the planning board from letting the public know when that zoning board of appeals meeting is?
We can't. It's not our agenda and it's not our board. So we cannot inform the public as to when a zoning board of appeals hearing is.
Thank you.
When
That's
do they
that's a
usually meet?
little sad, but thank you.
But you can call the zoning board of appeals and find out. We can't inform you of that because we have nothing to do with it.
Would be our hearing.
No.
Another
Yes,
customer.
ma'am.
I asked Mr. Ryan to tell us if there's a zoning board schedule.
Not our job.
Schedule, Leslie McDonald. May I ask Mr. Ryan if there is a meeting scheduled for the zoning board of appeals?
Please state your name.
Leslie McDonald.
Okay.
There is, but I don't know.
He doesn't have the date right now. You could find it out by calling the ZBA tomorrow.
Last time, the gentleman who was just here showed you a plan that showed the vegetation, the planting that was planned, and he showed pictures of, sketches of the buildings. We have never seen that for these two lots. This is the only thing that we have seen.
Well, we did have it
No,
at our
we
meeting.
saw.
It's not an elevation.
We saw the elevations last time we saw this, 2 weeks ago.
Not
We saw the landscaping plan. I'm sorry, but you could go into the planning office, because they are there, and see them, but we did see them. Okay? Okay,
Question.
yes. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Christy Baxter on 8 Settlers Path. I have sort of a technical question. If this property is developed as it is, shown on the map, and the residential buildings at 17 and 19 Nye Road are demolished, which this shows happening, does that constitute a change in use of the two parcels, which then become one because this parking lot is kind of flopped over onto the second parcel, from residential to business? I know it's a business zone, but does the elimination of the residential properties make the 17 and 19 Nye Road property now in business use because it's contiguous to the front property? And does that, and because it has parking partly on it related to the building that's being developed on Main Street, and does that have implications on what kind of protections need to be put in place for the abutting residential owners to that parcel? So that's question number one. And number two is, if that parcel is in the same ownership as the parcel across the street, does that make this parcel part of the same premises as the parcel across the street, and therefore enable the subsequent development of an off-site parking lot a matter of right?
First of all, I don't feel competent to answer that, but the properties are in two different names.
It's yes and no.
Pardon?
I think the answer is yes and no.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I mean, yes to
But-
the first question, no to the second.
Oh, okay.
So yes to the change in use?
It's not our job to answer that question, though.
Yeah, you're changing a business zone property from a residential use to a by right business use.
Right.
I mean, that's, yeah, that's yes.
Yeah,
Does
that's
the
yes.
fact that it's in common ownership with across the street make it part of the same thing? The answer is no.
They're two separate entities. Okay? Yes, sir.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Jerry Smith, 27 Nye Road. So, again, I'm still confused. So this lot gets okayed, the parking lot that's here, because it's now attached to Main Street to allow for the extra parking to cover the residential building. You approve it as a parking lot, a grass parking lot over pavers, correct?
We don't.
No, the zoning board will approve
If
it
they
because it's
do.
attached, if they do. It is intended to be used for the Marriott Corporation on the other side of the road, so if it's already approved, if it already gets approved by the zoning board, do they take that into account that it's gonna be used in conjunction with the other lot?
I can't answer that question for them. I would
No,
be speaking
no,
for
not
another
that,
board.
But I mean, do you know what I mean?
I
Like,
do.
That's just why I'm getting confused, because under like section 240-109A, you have to be within 300 feet of the front of the building. The parking lot for the building has to be within 300 feet of it, but I can't see what is gonna go on over there, so.
They're not asking that question now.
We can't
Right.
answer that question.
But if it gets approved in sections, that's my concern, you know what I mean?
Incrementally, and I
Yeah.
understand that, but that is for you to bring up with the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
As part of what they are looking at.
That answers the question.
And I would have to tell you that the zoning board of appeals is extremely careful with their decisions. I don't know whether that allays your concerns. It probably doesn't, because you do have to be there.
Right.
And you have to bring your concerns up, but they are very careful about their decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Okay.
One more. Just one more quick question.
Yes, sir.
Gary Gerard, 28 Nye Road. For the traffic flows, I'm just curious about where because I haven't been able to see this, where the traffic's coming in and out for the retail, this proposal here, and how the traffic's going to flow. That's my question.
Yeah, at this point,
A lot of kids.
because there is not going to be that much traffic. But if it's determined that it is a problem, it can be labeled left-hand turn only, so that they cannot go down Nye. I mean, does that mean they're not going to? No, people make turns that they're not supposed to, but it can certainly be labeled left-hand turn only. Okay?
Stand up when you're supposed to back.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
She talking about left-hand turn,
Leslie McDonald, did you say there was not going to be much traffic?
For this particular usage,
Oh, from that.
yes.
How do you know that?
They have indicated that there would not be. There are 2 apartments, and there may be 2 retail businesses. There may be only 1, the way it's going to be developed,
Or offices.
or offices. But that comes up at a separate time, when it's determined what's in there.
When are we able to know that?
I can't answer that question, I'm sorry, but I can't. If I had my crystal ball, maybe I could, but I'm sorry, I don't have a crystal ball tonight to answer that.
Perhaps Mr.
Madam
Ryan
Chair.
would tell us.
Yes, Rich?
I would just like to make a comment that we have, site plan reviews, pretty much, our plans are pretty much tied to, if somebody has a use that's permitted under the zoning bylaw, and we have to recognize that, then our role is simply to make determinations as to what they're going to do on the site and whether that is permitted under our town site plan standards, and that's all we're doing. We're not going to be deciding any off-site parking tonight because that's not within our purview to permit. So all we're doing is we're looking at what's on that plan and does that conform to site plan standards that the town has, and yes, it does. So that's it.
Okay. Now, does the board feel that they wish to issue this decision? We have a decision in front of us tonight.
I do.
Okay. Well,
I
how
will make
about
a
if you
motion.
move it?
Do we have to read it?
Last official act was.
Rich is going
Okay.
to.
Why don't you read it? Don't mess it up.
Motion.
Last chance, Richard.
Motion that the planning board vote to approve the application of Ryan Development LLC under Article 39, Site Plan Review of the zoning bylaw for a plan entitled, quote, 587 Main Street and 17 and 19 Nye Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts, close quote, prepared by Hancock Associates, dated April 1st, 2014, revised, 5/5/2014, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, with the following findings and conditions. Findings. The applicant proposes to construct a mixed-use building with 3,000 square feet of retail space together with 2 apartments, with the associated parking, drainage, and landscaping. The proposal for seasonal parking has been removed from the plan, as this is a permit issue that is appropriate in front of the Board of Appeals, not the Planning Board. The site plan has been developed in harmony with the intent of the Business Redevelopment Zoning District that was specifically designed for East Main Street. Parking is located behind the building, and green space with pedestrian amenities have been provided in the front of the building. The curb cut is located off Nye Road, and with the elimination of the seasonal parking lot, the board finds this acceptable, as the purpose of the district is to foster pedestrian-friendly streetscapes. The stormwater management system has been reviewed by the engineering division and found acceptable. The site is served by town water and sewer facilities, therefore no nitrogen mitigation is required. The landscape plan has been prepared and provides screening for abutters and provides an attractive setting for the building and site. Conditions. 1, the plan shall be constructed as approved. Any changes shall be reviewed by the planning board to determine if a modification of this decision is necessary. Pursuant to section 240-183B of the zoning bylaw, no permit for full or partial occupancy shall be issued until the planning board is satisfied that the conditions of this approval and predecessor approvals have been met. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall obtain a curb cut opening permit from the Department of Public Works Engineering Division for the entrance on Nye Road. All work performed within the public right-of-way shall be conducted under the direction of the town engineer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Yes, Bob?
I would like to add a third condition, that a left-hand turn only onto Nye Road be added as a condition at this point.
It's been moved. Is there a second to that?
Left turn.
Left-hand turn only.
So you come out onto Nye Road, and then you have to exit.
You're going to
onto
second
the-
it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Well, I'll accept it. I mean, yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't turn right.
No.
It's been moved and seconded that there be a left-hand turn only sign, so that people can, exiting this property, can only go left out to Main Street and not go right down.
This is from the subject property to Nye Road only.
The Nye
Correct.
Road curb cut shall be left turn only on exit.
Correct.
Right.
So it's only affecting traffic in and out of this parcel.
Correct.
And it's to mitigate the traffic going down Nye Road.
Mhm. Paul, you had a comment?
That subject came up last time we talked
Yes,
about
it
this,
did.
but I thought it was in conjunction with the parking lot. Now, if the parking lot was to be constructed, it would be a left turn only.
No, now we're
I'm
putting it
not
on the
sure.
building.
I'm-
Now we're
Excuse me.
changing it and putting it on this
Wait a
building.
minute. Let Paul finish what he's saying.
I thought it was related to the parking lot only and not to the building itself. Now, I don't have an objection to that, but the discussion came up last time related to the for the future parking lot, which is not included now. I just want to make that point.
I understand that, but the residents are concerned,
I
as they
understand
were
that.
even with the larger, so. You don't have it, Ralph, you had
I'm just trying to understand
okay,
why,
those,
that's all.
Well, the way I look at it is, if the entrance wasn't off Nye Road, it would have to be on Main Street. There would be another curb cut on Main Street. So anybody living there or using those businesses would have to be going out onto Main Street anyways. And I think this way, if we make it a left-hand turn only onto, on exit onto Nye Road, it would be similar to just having a curb cut on Main Street. We're just using Nye Road as the curb cut to Main Street.
Better, because this way, they have to go 3 or 4 car lengths up to the stop line and then stop at the stop sign and make an orderly turn onto Main Street, whereas a curb cut on Main Street would be a zoot.
Right, and there's already a curb cut next door to it as it is now, so I think it's safer, not having curb cut, in sequential order like
Johnson
that.
Electric has a curb cut right onto Main Street.
Yeah.
So we have an amendment to the original motion. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Been seconded.
Yes, it has been seconded. No further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay, everybody seems in favor of it, so,
I was just making a point, but
Oh.
I have another issue.
oh, okay.
The conditions here refer to the constructed as approved. We have a revised drawing here, but it's not the complete set of drawings that we had last time. For example, last time when the parking lot was there, and I realized it's taken out, there was more landscaping, if I remember correctly, along the property owned by Mr. Smith. And I don't see that on this set of drawings, so I'm not sure exactly what set of drawings we're referring to in this motion.
Can you help us with that, Brian?
What's in front of the board at the moment, I don't have the plans in front of me, so can you tell me what, it should be C2, 3, and 4.
Just put a reference to the plan plan filed, as filed when?
It's not good.
What?
Last time we had a landscape plan, this time.
No, we have this plan here. That's the plan we're looking
Yeah,
at.
so the plans were changed, so we resubmitted plans dated May 5th.
What's the date on that plan that you have here?
May 5th.
What?
May 5th.
May 5th, so I'm going to propose an amendment. The
No,
plan-
that was what we had in front of us.
Okay,
You should have plans in front of you dated April 1st, 2014, revised 5/5/2014 as part of your motion. First paragraph.
that's right. That's the first thing I read.
Right.
We don't need an amendment. All right,
There you go.
Landscape plan
all right,
is not here.
we're all set to...
Yeah, we're all set.
Quick clarify.
There's no change or no retraction of the landscaping. The landscape plan that we have committed to prior is still on the table, still with this board.
Yeah.
So we have the motion in front of us as now amended. Is there further comment on the motion as amended? Okay,
We know what plan we're talking about.
yes, we do know what plan we're talking about. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Thank you. And thank you for staying and going over this again, I appreciate that. What did I do with my, there it is. Yeah, I know, the big mess. Next on our agenda is a referral, Elmarch Way, but we don't have anything on that because we are currently waiting for town council's memo in regard to zoning and abandonment. And could you take the
Quiet,
conversation
please.
outside, please?
Folks, can you
Hey,
please
Rich.
move outside with your conversations? Thank you.
We are currently waiting for town council's memo in regard to zoning and abandonment on Elmarch Way, and we will see that on June 3rd. General correspondence, there really is none, but just for point of information for the board, the Attorney General has approved Articles 7 and 8 after the glitch. So that, as Brian had expressed, there's just never any holdup on that. We saw something similar the last time. Okay, and is there anything that we want to see on future agendas?
Yeah. Yes.
Ralph?
Yeah, I think it's imperative that we reinstitute site visits.
you want to discuss that on a future agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will have that come up on a future agenda.
I have one.
Yes.
I'd like to restart the discussion about the Transportation Management Committee that we had discussed possibly taking an interest in that role.
Okay.
Not that we need more stuff to do, but someone should be doing something with that.
Okay. Anything else that we want to see come up on future agendas? Okay. Now, for members of the public who happen to be watching us tonight, who don't necessarily know this, tonight is Rich's last meeting with the planning board. He has-
We want a speech.
I think it sounds sort of wimpy to say that, well, he chose not to run for reelection. It doesn't really take into account all of the time he has spent with the town, and that he will continue to spend as a town meeting member. I think it maybe is far better to say he is partially retiring. Does that sound better, Rich? And so this is to you from the board.
Thank you.
And we have some further things going on here tonight, too.
Okay.
Jim?
Well, one of the things that's happened to us in working with Richard, we've actually created some new words. And the word that, actually, I think Doug might have been the first one to use it, but it is lateralization. To lateralize an issue is to at first talk at length, strongly opposing the issue on national political grounds, then dissecting it into somewhat obscure parts while mixing in both local and historic references, and then liberally applying a dose of jurisprudence. Then, after several minutes, eventually recognizing some of the merits of the issue you were attacking. This technique is most effective if the user can find a way to apply a reference to the undefeated Lord's High School football team of 1962 and 1963. That's lateralization. Thank you. Oh, that was close. He has to correct me, 1961.
But almost undefeated. We lost to Constable.
The old nemesis. But
Thank you.
nice job, Rich.
Richard, thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
You're a learning
We're not
experience.
done.
We're not done yet.
More than
Hey, wait, 22 years, come on, we can have a few minutes here.
Richard, the last couple of weeks, we've been discussing what is appropriate to give you on your last day here. And as been mentioned previously, lateralization, I would have used it as to latimize rather than now. And my definition was much shorter. It was to extensively argue both sides of an issue to the indefinite conclusion.
That was the original definition.
But anyway, as was mentioned here, we
expanded
also
it.
have a gift for you. And we appreciate it because that's good, Steve.
Well, thank you. A plaque. This will go right on my wall, right next to my bar.
Well, you don't know what it is
You
yet.
don't know what it is.
You better be careful.
Feels like a plaque.
We'll wait, it's okay, it's only 9:30.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's see it.
This happens to be the 1962,
well, 1961.
1960
Class of 1962.
1961, 62 Lawrence High School football team. Now, it was undefeated.
No,
It was
we lost
actually,
once.
it was 6-0-2. So you had two tie games. And then you played Barnstable, and that was the loss. But what's interesting about this, if you look at the pictures, Richard's here, number 31, right up front. Over here in the middle is number 21, who happens to be Dick Stone.
Right.
And I went in to see Dick the other day, and I said, "Do you remember Richard when he played football Here's the thing I remember about him, is I scored 3 touchdowns, and each time Richard was in motion, and it was called back. So we didn't hear about that from you, so you had your impact for many, many years, and I hope you continue to do so.
All right.
Okay, now I think we can entertain a motion for, Ralph?
I think it would be appropriate if the planning board gave Richard a standing ovation.
I agree.
Oh, I agree.
Thank you, Rich.
Now we can have a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we should have let Richard.
Oh, Richard, you want to
Motion
move that
to
we adjourn?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
All right, good job.